Hello there, I hope that you're having a wonderful day today. I'd like to invite you into part 4 of this extended portrait painting and demonstration, and you will now have access to every single brushstroke involved in the development of this painting.
With just titanium white into the light region of the flesh tones, I'm going to try to get this highlight, a little highlight shimmering over here. And the same goes up here. And then I'm going to get the one of the brushes that I already cleaned earlier and just try to push this over so it's not such an intense edge. I have to switch brushes again. So just titanium white and ivory black, just mix all into here. A little more of the medium, more titanium white. Let's go ahead and try to get this light shape back in here. And then what we do to one side, we want to do to the other. So let's just go ahead and put in that shape. And now you're back into the larger view of the painting, just so you can see the paint mixtures again. And the struggle continues with the eyes. I'm still trying to focus much more on more into the shapes. So I think that I'm getting the shape that I want, but I think I need to be very mindful of the size of the eyes. And you know, this is all part of the fun of creating these portraits. Sometimes you don't really have the answers. You have to go looking for them. Now, let's see here. I'm going to sit back. It's important to sit back or stand back. And like I said, eyes are getting too big. Although it's usually safer to make them a little bit larger, but I think that we had it a little too far. See how easy it is to adjust these shapes? Half-tone brush. We're going to put in a little bit of the cadmium red medium into here. So it's all down to problem solving now. Eyes could be getting too close together as well, I'm not sure. Gotta keep the shape simple and easy. Like I said, the time, I knew that the time would come where I would have to make adjustments. And those adjustments are simple and easy to manage. Just a series of brushstrokes. I have a feeling this video is going to come out to be a little bit longer. So I've been splitting up into 45-minute, about 30 to 45-minute segments. Not sure how long this one is going to be. So a little bit more warmth into here. So again, with the cadmium red medium, to this darker region of the palette. Right into there. Some more ivory black into that. That shape needed to go down a little bit more. Very, very tiny, tiny adjustments. And again, it's okay. You know, if like the eyes are a little bit off or something like that for a while in the portrait. And then there's always those little miracle moments where you come back in and just push the paint around. Then it all seems to fall into place. So I'm thinking that shape needs to come down. Not entirely sure. This edge needs to be a little softer. Some more cadmium red. I did switch back to those kind of middle-sized brushes. I guess while I have this, I'm going to re-examine the chin. So I think that this light is just getting too, I don't know, the shape is just too far off over here. And like I said, I don't want to copy the photo reference, but some things should be at least fairly close to the photo reference. So that is this shape here. I also think that the shadow might be getting too light over there. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to go ahead and get a different brush. Let's get a large brush so I can cover quickly. So the Burnt Umber, Alizarin Permanent, Ultramarine Blue. Let's just push these shadows a little bit darker. And again, the objective is not to get it perfectly like the photo reference. It never is. But I think that, you know, if we're going to create visual poetry here, I think that's important that it's poetic in some way. So I'm going to try to obtain that by minimizing my brush strokes and try to make them much more accurate. Just going to push this area darker. So I felt like it needed to get a little darker, and we're going to flatten it a little bit, which is ideal for shadows. I do the same thing to this shadow. Sometimes it always comes down, or somehow it always comes down to the darks. Let's go ahead and push this over. Could have more of a shape here, actually. And again, I'm struggling with the mandible. So with this area here, like I usually say, when in doubt, blur it out. So I'm going to keep it very soft. Very, very soft. And again, just moving all around the picture still. Gonna add more titanium white to this just to cool it down. And even throw in a little bit of cadmium green just for fun. We're gonna continue to noodle over here. And I'm gonna switch to running out of options. Whatever. Let's switch to this brush with the burnt umber. And you're seeing how laid back I am with these color mixtures. Just gotta feel them out, really. I wanted a little bit more warmth, so more of the cadmium red. More of the Alizarin Crimson Permanent. Just trying to soften these edges. Just make it lighter. And then while we're at it, back to the background brush. Noticing yet again, I could adjust the contour here. I'm going to push that in. See that? See how even just the tiniest little adjustment to the contour can make a big change in the way that this whole shape looks. All down to the tiny stuff. I'm gonna go on a limb here and just push this light area even brighter. Remember earlier I said that there was a gauge, or I set a gauge here with how light I could go, and that's still kind of too bright. So I think that I can, again, reassess the light key. So without cleaning this brush, I'm kind of strategically allowing the residue of the colors on this brush to help to neutralize the saturation on the brush. A little bit of Neo Megilp just to increase the fluidity of the paint. A touch of cadmium red medium. Want something that's a little bit more yellow pinkish. I want a deep pink, so that's why I'm using the Alizarin Crimson Permanent. There we go. That's the value I wanted. And the color, I hope. And I think what I'm going to do after putting in that light is to continue to push the darks in the hair. And then maybe a few more final touches, and I think that'll be it for this painting, I think. We'll see. So again, much more light around here, but I don't want to blast it too much. So how about now that we're moving down towards the cheekbone area, we're going to put the reds, so the cadmium red medium and the Alizarin crimson permanent, just mixing right into this area of the palette. A little bit more Alizarin crimson permanent. I don't know, yellow ochre or cadmium yellow deep. I think yellow ochre. So the yellow ochre. And it's just going to be very subtle things now, like this plane here. I'm going to want to push it a little brighter. And now I'm going to have to get another brush that's not quite as light, so I'm going to have to clean out another brush. Yellow ochre, cadmium red, and I think this ought to be good. Just soften these edges around the bottom of the lower eyelid as it meets the top plane of the cheekbone. Now we'll drop down in value again. Just to put in that little halftone. The bulb of the nose. So again, now it's just going to be really subtle stuff. Very, very subtle stuff. So, for instance, this dark. Now we're really just fine-tuning the plane changes and the brush strokes that we use. You know, the direction of the brush stroke even. Following the form. It does still get a little bit darker down here than I have initially described. And we're trying to soften these edges at the same time. It could be that the eyes are too close. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I've been struggling with those eyes this whole time. It's good. It's a good struggle though. This is where we learn. If everything goes according to plan all the time, then we don't really leave too much room for learning, I think. Right around here. Something I could do. Not entirely sure what. So let's go ahead and get this brush, add some more cadmium red medium to it. I think it's just that plane. Could use a little more. I think it's actually a little more flat than I had before. Before I had it too round. I wanted to leave room for this plane. Make it more specific. Something like that. So this is going to be, again, noodling because I took out the highlight and I'm going to put it back. now over top of the corrected value, or should I say the corrected shape. A little bit more of a deeper red. So back to the cadmium red medium. Notice how much red I use. It's important to have a really quality red. Make sure it's artist grade, especially the red. Being very cautious with that value. So this value and this value are very, very dangerous. I'm going to be very, very cautious with these shapes. Just softening that. And I think as I continue to work these shapes, I'm starting to want to edit the background even more. I actually kind of want to push it darker. Because in the photo reference, notice this corner here is actually much darker. So I think that's also something that's kind of disturbing me around there. Alright, let's do that. I'm going to get the background brush again. I don't know, let's change the hue a little bit. Let's make it a little warmer there. So burnt umber. Cadmium. Why do I keep calling the black cadmium? So the ivory black and the burnt umber. I think just that. We'll let some of the value that we had before show. But in general, I think I want to make it darker and warmer. So again, there was a post-it note that I was talking about with the, or a post-it note in which I was explaining my choice for the background. So now that I'm revisiting the background again, I'm really revisiting the background just because it didn't feel right. I don't know, this corner to the background just didn't feel right. It was just too made up. Because the value that you're observing in the photo reference is darker, so I should at least get the value, right? And then as I put that in, I start to realize, I'm starting to realize that's getting too light. So it's kind of helping me see, pushing that darker is actually helping me see where I've gone wrong with the shadow. So this is also kind of how we perfect our values as well. And that's why I'm so drawn to this technique these days. Just because not only do I want to just get more painting, I just want to paint more, but at the same time, like it's really helping me improve my perception of my values. So again, just pushing that darker. And you can see how I kind of really needed that adjustment. Now it's starting to look a little bit more lifelike, at least around this area here. So let's just go ahead and continue to adjust these values. Some more burnt umber. Definitely over here as well. Yeah, just if you deviate too much from the photo reference, it can also cause some issues, just like what we were having earlier. Not saying that the issues are completely solved out, but I think it's just kind of helping. And yes, it does really help because now I can see right into these areas, in particular here, 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 and maybe the eyebrows. I can go even darker, so I'm putting in some more Neo Megilp. Gonna mix all the way down here. Ivory black. Alizarin crimson permanent. Whoops, too much. Alizarin. Let's see. How much darker can we go? There we go. That's a nice and rich dark. I hope it's perceptible to the camera, but not sure. It's not the darkest dark we can go. Notice how we still use the Alizarin permanent and still kind of mixed onto this. So again, it's not the darkest we can go, but it's pretty dark now. A little bit more Alizarin. I'm gonna push these darks. And all over here. Yeah, definitely it was our darks. I don't think I was pushing the darks dark enough for quite a while. But again, I really want to show you all of the brushstrokes, all of the footage. So maybe you might even get something out of the fact that like I was noodling around here for a while until I started putting in this value. Then I was like, oh, okay, I just needed to go darker. And I'm kind of editing out the light that I see there. Notice how in the photo reference there's a little bit of light there. But I'm just going to edit that out just so I don't, so I'm careful not to frontalize the nose. I definitely want it to, I want the viewer to know, or I want it to be visible that, the nose, you're still seeing a little bit of the corner of the nose there. And then while we have this, let's just do this on the palette. And I think that the hair, I did say I was going to push some of the dark shapes for the hair. So let's just go ahead and do that. Now that we have that dark on the brush, there we go. Some nice values. Let's paint in some of those curls there. Just for fun. Like curls all into here. Gonna use the fan brush. Some darker shapes all into here. And again, we're gonna let some of the curls of the hair show. Basically the idea to get out of this is don't give up, because if you put too much emotional, if you commit too much emotionally to a portrait, it could probably hurt you just as much as it can help you. I think it's important to always give yourself some distance from the painting, physically, but also kind of emotionally, because it was concerning me the way that the painting was looking for quite a while until I started to push the darks. Now I'm back. Now I feel like I can breathe again. Alright, so now I'm going to continue to push the contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get that dark shape or dark value again. So the ivory black, the alizarin permanent, some more Neo Megilp. Let's see here. There we go. I can go much darker now, so that is good. Not sure if the camera can pick this up. This is a very subtle change in value. Or maybe it's not as subtle as I thought, but it's fairly dark. I'm able now to push the shapes for the hair even darker now, which is good news for us. So this angle where it's more straight, over here it's kind of more curved, which we kind of have, but let's just try to push that curve even more. Gonna get the middle tone brush. I think this is clean. Yeah, it's clean. So what would have been the middle tone brush, I think I just ended up not using it earlier. Just soften that. Alright, so now that I pushed the hair a little bit darker, I think as a consequence I can also push the shadow darker. I'm going to have to be very particular now with the values that I want for the shadow, so I'm going to use just burnt umber for now. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of Alizarin crimson permanent and ultramarine blue, a little bit of cadmium red. That was too much, so back to the ivory black, Alizarin crimson permanent, cadmium red. I want something now that's very dark, but not as dark as the darkest darks. And we're going to let the layer underneath kind of help us out. So again, I'm still painting wet on wet, so the painting is still wet for me. So I'm going to go ahead and make this shape darker. Just trying to push the contrast a little bit. There we go. Same thing, same deal with the nose. It's a very light touch. Push this darker all down here. So I can actually raise the chin a little bit. But just a matter of a few brush strokes can raise the chin easily. That's how forgiving the oil paint is. Now I'm going to switch to this little middle tone brush here. I'm going to add some Alizarin crimson permanent. See if we can get this value. And all into here. I keep putting this shape in and I keep taking it out. Let's just mix into this area of the palette, get something warmer. I'm going to clean off this little brush here. How about we get a little more red into the lips? I think that's also something I must have edited out in my mind, or I probably said I would paint it in and just forgot. So let's just go ahead and put straight up Alizarin crimson permanent, just mixing into this area of the palette. I'm going to start to get these reds A little bit of cadmium red, medium. Let's just raise the value a little bit. And while we're at it, we can also get a little highlight. For that shape. I think we can put in a little more of a defined edge. So let's get a little alizarin crimson permanent into this area of the palette. Now we're going to put in some cadmium red medium. Let's get you in the close-up shot here. We're just going to put in much more of a defined edge now here. I'm going to throw in a little more light down here. Then as a consequence, we're going to throw in a little bit of a darker halftone underneath. Pretty much use the background color, to be honest, for this halftone. And then of course it's hard to see on the photo reference, but I think there would be a little bit of an accent mark right under here. So I'm just going to mix up the alizarin permanent ivory black. So alizarin permanent and ivory black. Just for that accent there for the lower lip. And then with the alizarin permanent ivory black yet again, but a little more alizarin permanent. That shape right there. Now that's what you really want your alizarin colors for. It's a very nice dark red. And I can remember the lips are among one of the easiest things to paint. I mean, just on a practical level, they're much easier to paint and therefore easier to move around. That's why I waited until this long to start to finalize some shapes for the lips. And now we're going to push the light on the upper eyelid a little bit more. Maybe even for both of them, not really sure. Now if you're used to leaning your hand up against something to make these kind of marks, it's okay. I'm just trying to, let me make the mark first. So I'm trying to actually not rest my hand as much, and you know, when things like that happens, I let it be, and I'm trying to paint some type of visual poetry. Like I'm trying to let some of the brush strokes be. You know, if my hand's a little wobbly with some of the brush marks, it's okay. trying to create a symphony of brushstrokes. And you'll see, like near the end of this video, you might only even see maybe like 4 or 5 brushstrokes that, you know, conjures up the eyes. But you'll know, after watching this, you'll know how many brushstrokes or how many intermediate marks in between it took to get to that point. But it's all part of the visual dialogue. It all kind of just shows up. I mean, even if you can't see all the brushstrokes that we use to create these shapes underneath, it's still part of the story of how this painting was developed. I'm going to push even more light over here. There's going to be just a few more final touches, but I think we're almost there. Just making this little plane even more subtle. And I think that, I guess now it's all really up to the edges. Edges and brushwork. It's usually about the last things that will happen. I'll start to figure out, like, okay, I want that brushstroke to show, or I want this brushstroke to show. And again, it's all part of the visual poetry. And do I want the background to be darker, or do I not want it to be darker? I think it's okay in the, you know, the way that the background is abbreviated as of now. I think just, again, just pushing the darks. So let's get this value here into here. And again, just pushing the darks. Really trying to pick and choose which brushstrokes I want to which brushstrokes I want to leave so that they show in the final image, which brushstrokes I want to cover up. Again, this is all down to aesthetics. I'm not going to dwell on the differences, less obvious to me but more obvious to you, between the you know, the proportions on the photo reference versus those in the painting. I know that there must be a ton of discrepancies, but in the end of the day, it's about the painting. It's what the painting, it's the story that the painting tells to the viewer, not so much how accurate the you know, how accurate it is to the model. I mean, the model is important. I want to capture, you know, what it is to observe the model. But again, there's always something more to painting, especially to portrait painting, where we tend to focus so much on likeness. Always leave room for creativity. And remember, don't try to push a style or a technique onto yourself. Well, technique maybe, but a style, you don't have to push style onto yourself. A particular style is something that you will develop, just like you've developed your own handwriting. You know, at this point I'm starting to mix up colors and I don't even know what I'm mixing them up for. So I think we're almost there. Just trying to decide which brush strokes I want to leave and what kind of directions. Oh yeah, there should be some light on the hair, right? So we'll use the flesh tone to put in those lights. See that? Very simple. And all throughout here, what was I doing? I was forgetting to put in this shape. Get some more of the flesh tone. Put in these lights. Right into here. Doesn't need much. Again, it's all really down to the edges, to be honest. I think that just picking and choosing which edges I want to soften now is going to be how I make way towards the finish. I think this edge right here, a little softer than I had initially described it. Even the ear, I think the ear could be softer. Just like a camera, when a camera focuses, on a certain area, for us, it's going to be somewhere over here. So I want to soften other areas as a result. And certain areas like that, like, you can just leave be, and it's okay. And I think these should be just about the final brush strokes, just softening these edges here. I guess that brush mark was a little too much. Let's leave that one sharper. Maybe we'll soften this one. And notice how you can see some almost like hatch marks, like with the pencil. I think that looks really neat, and I think that's just something that happens with this kind of approach, the alla prima approach, as opposed to, drawing all the outlines. Imagine had we drawn in all the outlines earlier and then started to just shade in and just like color in each one of these little shapes. Though it would have been quite effective, I don't know, I just think that it was much more fun. You know me. I'm probably going to, create one of these videos again using the, the classical approach where we just draw everything out and then underpaint it and start to, color in all this stuff. But I just think this was a lot more fun, and I think we got a pretty decent result. Remember in the beginning of this painting how we just slapped on some color and then just went from there. Remember, there is not there's not just one way to create a painting, especially portrait painting. There's no one ultimate and true way to paint. There are so many ways to approach painting. And I'm never going to tell you, don't paint like this. I'm never going to tell you, you should never paint like that, or this is not how you paint a portrait, or whatever. That's just not me. I think that it's important to explore. Every day we can be in the studio is a day we can have fun and learn. Especially if we get to explore around the canvas like we did with this painting. And of course, it's not a perfect photographic rendition. Again, I don't even think that the features are like, if you do a photographic trace of the, if you trace the photo reference on top of this, I'm pretty sure that there are going to be many discrepancies. But again, I'm happy with the result. I think that, I definitely did struggle a lot with, in particular, the eyes. Struggle is a good thing. The struggle is really struggle in painting is really what pushes you to move beyond where you previously have been with your painting abilities. And I think that it's important to notice that this is not a painting that's intended to look exactly like the photo reference that you saw. Instead, I interpreted the visual information that I was presented with in front of me and created a painting. That being said, I really hope that this video has helped you out. Every single brushstroke involved in creating this painting has been captured on my camera. That being said, I really hope that the presentation of these extended portrait painting demos, as well as my other videos of the past, are helping you out. I wish you the best in all of your artwork, and as always, I'll be back again very soon. And for those of you that are still watching, I'm going to end this video with, I think, what do I have here? 3 more Post-it notes. So I'm sorry, I don't know how I don't know if I can pronounce this properly. Los idealistas, idealists, I guess, but in a different language. Idealistas. Yeah, I'm going to sound really dumb right now with my knowledge of language. But in any case, you're asking, can you do cast drawing, cast painting, landscape, long still life, and hands? Now, I have done some, oil painting demonstrations of hands, or I think only one, but a long still life and hands sound great. But what I really like about this is that right there, landscape. Let me know in the comments down below if you would like me to create some landscape paintings. And just a disclaimer, I would love to do plein air landscape, being out there, but controlling the filming situations, trying to film outside, painting a plein air painting, I think is, beyond what I know how to do in terms of setting up my studio. But to paint a landscape from a picture is something that I can definitely do. I'm not an expert. I wouldn't consider myself an expert in landscape, but I've been really wondering about this right here, if I can paint some landscape paintings for you. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you would like me to paint some landscape paintings. And I'll definitely keep the cast drawing, the cast painting, and the other ones in mind as well. And so here we have Mommy 16315. So your comment was again about the variation in the flesh tones of certain models. So models with different skin complexions, essentially. So yes, I would love to do, or I would love to paint models with different skin complexions, and I would love to paint just a variety of different models all the time. So again, I've had many questions about how I obtain, or how I get the photo references of the models that I have, and to be honest, it's just nothing special. I love to be able to take the pictures of the models in person, so meet them at a painting group or something. So the model we just finished up painting here, again, I met her at a painting session, and then asked her, I told her I have a YouTube channel, and then like, is it okay if I take photo references to create a painting of you? And she was like, yep, that's all good. And so yeah, that's I would love to do that. I don't know if I can pronounce this one correctly, but you are a new subscriber. Hello to my channel, or welcome to my channel. Maria Dolores Vasquez, ABAD. Sorry, my camera isn't really focusing there. There we go. So you're a new subscriber, so welcome to the channel. And you mentioned both voiceover and live work well, and you also were giving me some very helpful feedback towards not worrying too much about what people think and stuff like that. And again, I was afraid of looking at the comments for a very long time. I'll admit, just because I'm a sensitive guy. People tend to say things to me, and I kind of shy away. But anyway, thank you for your feedback on both voiceover and live. And so again, what we just finished up painting here was live style, meaning I was actually painting and talking at the same time, as opposed to voiceover, where I film all of the painting and then do voiceover after the fact. So that being said, thank you so much for being a new subscriber to my YouTube channel. I wish you the best in all of your artwork. And as always, thanks again, everyone, for watching this video. I will be back again with another one very soon. And by very soon, I mean most likely in 24 hours.